And part of it, man, it was like a out of body experience. Like I kind of blacked out.
That's
but all
best.
I remember is just hearing that laugh and that affirmation that I've always wanted from my parents
Right.
that I never got.
That's right.
And I think in the same way we do that with drugs and alcohol. My parents are so proud of me. My dad finally figured out Facebook, and he writes on my wall, still in broken English, by the way, like, "You are #1 comedian in the world, very handsome man with law degree," with all these crazy emojis, these hearts, eggplants, and peaches. Getting up in the morning, I couldn't even function because I was so depressed, and I had to take a bong hit just to get out of bed. 1 week with my parents, I feel like I'm 12 again.
Go sleep in your old bedroom.
Yeah,
See how that
I
feels.
don't do that anymore. I have to have boundaries. Yeah.
Jimmy Shin, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So you're a lawyer.
Not a lawyer. I did graduate from law school.
Uh-huh.
Kind of an interesting story. Traditional Asian parents wanted me to go to law school. Conditioned as a child. They had a vision board on my wall that said Jimmy Shin, attorney at law. So they knew what they were doing. They brainwashed me into thinking I wanted to be a lawyer.
Right.
But, I was miserable because it really wasn't my calling. I was doing it because my parents wanted me to.
Oh,
right?
it's the Asian families are parallel to Jewish families.
Yes.
If you're going, we're either doctors or lawyers.
Yeah.
And otherwise we're nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was my exact scenario.
That's right.
And man. And I was a budding drug addict and drug dealer when I went to law school. And by the time I went to law school, I was selling 100 pounds of weed, which back then was very illegal, even in the state of California.
Sure.
And I ended up getting busted, because I was acting out, selling drugs and partying. And I was going to school in San Diego and hanging out with more of the surfer and stoner
You were arrested?
friends. I was arrested.
A lot of Koreans in jail? Are there?
No, none. None.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually have to go with the Mexicans.
Right.
Make friends with the
Well, you just tell them you're Mexican.
yeah, I'm a Mexican on weed, vato. So long, hard road to get to sobriety and to get to my calling, which I finally found stand-up comedy while I was on probation, which is interesting. So I always tell people, man, hang on, because some of the worst things that happen to you can become the best things that happen to you.
Well, they're the funniest things that happen to you, as long as they're not happening to you in the moment.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. It was miserable in the moment. Thought it was, ruined my life, but it actually, sent me on a good path.
Dude, I don't even know how I would explain this to my grandmother. I don't even know. I'm a lawyer, but, I'm going to be a comedian. I'd be afraid to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had to lie to them. They thought I was still doing real estate when I first moved down to LA to pursue stand-up. And for years, they did not know that I was actually doing stand-up. And then
probably for the best.
Yeah. And then finally, a couple of years ago now, I was doing a show in my hometown of Tacoma, Washington. And basically, my parents had never seen me perform live because of, let's call it what it is, all the abuse and myself falling off the path that they wanted me to.
Sure.
And I didn't want my dad to judge me on another thing, right?
Right.
And so, but right at that time, a friend of mine's mom had passed away. And she said she'd give anything to hear her mom nag on her one more time. And so this really got me. My parents are getting older. I wanted them to see what I do, who I really am, right? So I invited them to the show. And on the show night, they brought 10 of their friends.
Oh, my God.
None of them spoke English.
Oh, my God.
And later on, I brought those 10 friends because they thought nobody else was going to be there, right?
Right.
And here's the kicker. During my set, my dad stands up. And he starts filming me with one of those old school camcorders.
Oh, my God.
I didn't know if it was VHS or beta.
How did you not start crying? Seriously.
And it was just a really touching moment. And it was really a miracle. And I attribute it to, sobriety and doing the 4-step and then doing the amends to my parents. Because if I hadn't done, the financial amends, the amends to them and them knowing that I'm sober and on a good path, that moment would have never happened. That my dad finally was proud that I was, a comedian.
Dude, I got to tell you, honestly, that is so beautiful, right? Because as children, we seek our parents' approval. And then you're not a father yet. But at a certain point, when you become a father, you start messing with your mind, right? Or at least I do. And I was like, whenever I see myself seeking my dad's approval, even today, I wake myself up and I say, hey, buddy, you're the dad now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it still creeps in.
Yeah.
Because we're hardwired that way.
Oh yeah. And 1 week with my parents, I'm, feel like I'm 12 again.
Go sleep in your old bedroom.
Yeah.
See how that feels.
I don't do that anymore. I have to have boundaries. Yeah. I'll come see you guys, but I'm staying at a hotel or a friend's house.
Right.
A few hours with my dad.
I know.
We start going at it.
Hit and
We're
run.
a lot, my dad's the alcoholic.
Right.
And,
he is?
We both are kind of a lot alike.
Wait, your dad's an alcoholic now?
My dad's he was an alcoholic. He got sober actually through a spiritual experience and through the church.
Really?
Which you can do. There's other ways you can do it.
That's the one problem I have with AA is if you get sober in AA, you think that's the only way to get sober.
Yeah.
And you have to believe that because your life depends on it.
Exactly.
But there are other ways that people get sober. Everybody's different.
Yeah. No, I know people that have gotten sober through ayahuasca.
Sure.
I don't recommend that path, but I know people that have. And so
that's for people that have never done mushrooms and acid. And then they go, ooh, it's no.
Yeah. I could see the other side. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That wasn't my way. That definitely. And I tried with some DMT before.
You did it with AA, right?
Yeah, I did it with AA.
Any therapy?
I've done it with therapy. And I always tell people, try everything, man. See what works for you.
That's right.
And what worked like a bomb for me is meditation,
right?
Therapy. I did years of that. And then the 12 steps, man, really healed my life.
Yeah. You're waking up and moving your body and eating right.
Yeah.
I know you ain't smoking.
Well, that kind of stuff kind of follows suit, man. When you clean up the inside, you clean up the outside, right?
Sure. And I've got this place, Carrera, right? This new treatment center that we opened, and we've been open now a year, 13 months. And people thought it was a vanity play because I've got an actual spa, like a real world-class hotel spa in the center, right? And they thought, ew, that's a vanity play. That's not sobriety.
Yeah.
And the reason I did it was because self-care turns into self-esteem, which turns into self-love.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Have you ever met an alcoholic ever that truly loved themselves trying to kill themselves with drugs and alcohol?
No.
It doesn't exist.
No.
Right. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. Yeah. I think holistic healing is where we're going to, because we realize that the purpose of sobriety isn't just to be sober, miserable, and unhealthy. It is to be happy, joyous, and free. And that also means healthy and whole to me.
Do you know, thank you for saying that, because when people say sobriety is its own gift, I want to light myself on fire.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I just had, with one of our therapists, she had a problem with what I said. And what I said was, you can't stay sober unless you replace what you held as most valuable with something of equal or greater value.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah.
Okay. Start telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me take that a step further. I think to have, true recovery, it's also helps. I know people that still stay sober, but to be happy, joyous, and free, I think one must find their passion. They must find their calling. And that is what kind of my message is always in recovery is, find your purpose, man. Find out what gets you up in the morning and that you're passionate about, because that way you'll never want to go back to drugs and alcohol.
I tell you're exactly right. I tell everybody we've only got one go around here.
Yeah.
I'm 58 years old. Nobody in my family lives past 77. I got 19 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it went by like that.
Yes.
It's like, you gotta have a joy of living.
Yeah.
You have to have it. And the problem with people like us is we don't know how to have a joy of living. We don't.
Yeah. All we had was drugs and alcohol. That was our life, right? Everything surrounded of how can I get my drug of choice? How can I keep this going? Yeah, a lot of times, man, and I didn't know, dude, I found stand-up comedy in my 30s. You know what I mean? I didn't know that I had a passion for that. And then on probation, felony probation, when people were, looking down on me and I was already a loser and had nothing to lose, I tried stand-up for the first time just for fun.
What a God shot.
And it was it was literally a spiritual experience for me, because I couldn't sleep that night. I was like, I found something that I want to do. And this is it. And I never explored anything else because I was on this one-way path to becoming a lawyer.
How'd you do that first night?
The first night, I killed it, man.
You just out of the gate.
And I just wrote down, all the jokes I've ever told people at parties and and into my friends, and then just did it up there. And part of it, man, it was like a out of body experience. Like I kind of blacked out, you know what I mean?
But
all I remember is just hearing that laugh and that affirmation that I've always wanted from my parents,
right,
that I never got.
That's right.
And it was, and I think in the same way we do that with drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely.
We feel that warm, fuzzy feeling of acceptance and love that we wanted, but we're going the wrong way with it. It's not true love, right? It's not true passion.
How, when you got sober, how was your act?
Man, the good news is when I found stand-up comedy, I was sober at that time, because I was trying to stay sober to get into the bar association. And and I ended up, relapse is a part of my story. I ended up relapsing because I went in front of the bar association to see if I was fit enough. They have a character and fitness committee that determines whether or not you're fit to sit for the bar.
But doesn't that have something to do with moral turpitude, or is that something different?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
So basically, when you get in trouble with some moral turpitude, you have to go in front of the bar association. It's like a court, 12 people of other lawyers.
Right. They don't want a bunch of drug dealers in their profession.
Yeah. But I was so resentful, man. I was like, you're going to say no.
How'd you do?
For pot? Yeah, and I know there's people that smoke pot, do cocaine. I've done coke with half of you, half of the lawyers. You know what I mean?
Did they? How did it work?
And they said no, that I was not fit. And really they were just saying, hey, go and do some more rehabilitation.
That's right.
And come back.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard it as, you're not good enough.
Yeah,
you're less than us.
Well, that's how we hear it.
That's how we. And so I ended up going out, man, for another 3 years because of that rejection.
That was the best thing that ever happened to you. You have a bang in life.
Oh yeah, I know that now.
Yeah.
Oh man, I know. I always tell people, they're like, why are you always like in a good mood and positive? And I'm like,
I'm not a lawyer.
I know how it could be.
Right.
Because I remember going to law school, getting up in the morning. I couldn't even function because I was so depressed, and I had to take a bong hit just to get out of bed. And that's where the life, and then you have to go read these boring books and that you're not interested in, and go play this role that I wasn't wanting to do. It was literally a nightmare every single day. Now it's literally a dream. I work with the biggest comedians in the world, the biggest places in the world. I just toured Europe. It's just I just know how it could be. You see what I'm saying?
That's so good.
Yeah.
I failed out of law school too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it literally was the worst day of my life.
Mm.
And it turned out to be the best day.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at you now.
I'm just thrilled.
Yeah.
If I would have lived a life like, first of all, if I would have lived a life like that, okay, I'd be disbarred already.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Yeah.
I practiced law for 13 years without a law license, but it was workers' compensation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how do you think I paid for all the rehabs?
Yeah, I always say if I became a lawyer, I'd probably blow my head off at some point on cocaine because I would be just so miserable. I'd probably be in Seattle, because my parents would want me to move back home, right?
Right.
But I found, boundaries, and I found freedom and recovery to where I tell them no now.
That's so funny what you said. Do you even realize what you just said?
Huh.
You said that if I was a lawyer,
Yeah.
my parents would want me to move back to Seattle.
Yes.
But they don't want you moving back to Seattle today.
Yeah, no.
That's so awesome.
No.
So the recorder was just a moment of clarity.
Yeah, it was that moment where, shifted.
How do they feel about you now?
Oh man, my parents are so proud of me. My dad finally figured out Facebook. A little late to the party.
Right.
When I first moved to LA to pursue my dreams, my dad was the worst thorn in my side. He's OCD now because, let's face it, our addiction is an OCD. It's an obsessive compulsive disorder.
It is.
That manifests in alcoholism, right? But now that he's sort of sober, he made his focus on me, and he was obsessive about me. And he'd call me every day. You're not going to make it. Asian man cannot be comedian, right? And I'm like, what about Margaret Cho? She's a woman, and so you couldn't win, right? And he'd just call me every day obsessively, telling me to move back home. Like, why are you no married? Why are you no kids? You gay? And he knew I wasn't gay. He was just trying to manipulate me into getting married to prove I'm not gay, right? So he had his manipulations. But now he figured out Facebook, and he writes on my wall, still in broken English, by the way, like, you are #1 comedian in the world, very handsome man with law degree, with all these crazy emojis, these hearts, eggplants, and peaches. I don't have the heart to tell him what the eggplants and peaches mean, but
don't do it.
But the point is, he's proud of me, man, and it's almost overwhelming. And I delete because he writes on my wall again obsessively every day. And my friends all know it. They go, oh, your dad's posting on my wall too, because very handsome man, because they know they do comedy with me. And they know that this is a fact. And I delete it now, but I also save it because someday I'm going to probably want to look at that, when they pass. So
do you know what I never did when my grandparents passed that I wish I would have done? Ask them everything about their early childhood and about, just their struggles and how they came out the other side and what it was like. Because, when we're young, we're so narcissistic, right?
Yeah.
That's just what happens.
Yeah. No, that's kind of what I did to find forgiveness and healing is I started investigating my dad's childhood.
That's so good.
And because I was just so resentful against him because he used to beat me, man. And the fact is, he didn't.
Well, that's just because he loved you.
yeah, exactly. The fact is, he did love me.
That's right.
And
back in our day, that's how you did it.
That's how you did it. You disciplined your kids, right?
That's it.
Nowadays, it's child abuse, right? But back then, this is before they invented child abuse. So basically, I investigated my dad, like almost like a detective, and putting pieces together from his brother and my mom and my nephews, and you know what I mean? And basically my dad didn't have a dad. Growing up, he had 9 brothers and sisters during the Korean War. And so they would fight for food. And Korea during his childhood was the poorest country in the world.
Were you guys in North or South Korea?
South Korea, man. It was after the Korean War. And thankfully for Korea, U.S. sort of occupied South Korea and freed them. Otherwise, we'd be part of the North Korea and China probably by now, right? And so long story short, he grew up in a time where everybody was poor, every single person. And they fought for food, and he didn't have a dad, so he didn't know how to be a dad. There's no handbook for this stuff. No. So he was being the dad that he thought he should have or that he should be. And that was a disciplinarian. He didn't want me to fall into the same things that he did. And by doing that, I fell into the same things he did.
You know what? I look at this with a completely different view.
Yeah.
I think that was probably for the best. And in the moment, it doesn't feel good, but the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
And I'm the blame the parent guy.
Yeah.
So I don't like when somebody is uber successful at something and they're doing really well in the world and they're talking smack about their parents. I'm like, dude, if I had good parents, I'd be the president.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, look at you.
Yeah.
Your parents were fine.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is, hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. And the cycle goes all over again. I mean, it says it all, right?
How do we not end on that?
Too easy, you know?
How do we not end on that? We're not doing it. Okay. But that was just perfect.
I think part of it is that really talented people have a tendency to be addicted to substances, right? I mean, with the Sam Kinnisons,
we're excellent people. We are a very talented.
The Richard Pryors, right? And it kind of goes hand in hand. And I think some of that comes with the trauma. I haven't met many really good comedians that don't have a ton of trauma. Like Richard Pryor was raised in a whorehouse.
Was he really?
Admittedly, yeah. He was raised in a whorehouse.
Rain, you never told me that. Go on.
And so he had a ton of trauma. I mean, imagine what you see growing up that way, right?
Huh.
And so we deal with trauma in the way that us addicts deal with it is you find, chemicals. And in the beginning, it's our medicine, because without that, we'd be dead, right?
People don't understand that. Elaborate on that because people don't get it.
Yeah. See, I always say that alcoholism actually stops when you stop drinking and using. And what I mean by that is that it centers in our mind. It's our trauma. It's our pain that we're actually trying to cover up with this medicine. We're self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. And so if you see a heroin addict, man, 10 out of 10 times they've experienced some deep emotional loss, pain, and they're just trying to medicate themselves, man. That's what it is. It's a pain med.
Do you know what I tell people?
Yeah.
Pain medication, opioids, works better on emotional pain than it does on physical pain.
Yes.
For me, I take 4 Advil and 2 extra strength Tylenol. And for me, that's prescription strength medication.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it does work better on emotional pain than physical pain because think of it, these people get all bent out of shape with their studies and their academia, but it's really this simple, isn't it?
It really is.
Our head is chewing on us all day.
Yeah.
All day, just beating the hell out of us nonstop. If we had somebody speak to us the way we speak to ourselves, we'd fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd kick their ass.
Or get your ass kicked if it's me. Okay. But it works better because quiets the mind and now you're feeling good. And if that does that to a person like us, we're doing that till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Because we're not suffering anymore.
Yeah.
The public doesn't understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so back to the comedians thing, I think a lot of them were suffering, from emotional pain. Look at Robin Williams. Look at even Jim Carrey. The guy, I think he might be back, but he quit acting for a while.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah, Jim Carrey. He always says, my favorite Jim Carrey quote is how I hope everyone makes all the money and achieves everything they ever wanted in life so they can realize that that's not the answer.
He's really right. He's really right.
Yeah.
When I sold Cliffside, I was scared of it.
Yeah.
I was scared of it. I help people for a living. What the hell do I know about investing and holding on to a big bag? I don't understand that.
Well, and it can, if you don't have good recovery, money can be rocket fuel for your addiction.
Right.
And that's why those celebrities die. They never make it to recovery because they have so much money and celebrity that people keep enabling them, right? And their money keeps enabling them.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a, billionaire and, from a very rich family, and he can't get sober. He's always finding another way. He basically had 7 heart attacks, and finally he has so much money. He flew to a place where he could get stem cells. And he basically got a second chance of life by getting a new heart by putting stem cells into it. And he was revitalized, and he's still using. He's still using.
He doesn't want to get well?
He wants to get well, but I don't think he needs to, because he can just keep getting stem cells, or there's always another, eventually, I'm afraid that he's going to just die, right?
Well, he either went to Germany or Panama, because those are the only 2 places that do it.
He went to Panama.
Right.
He went to Panama, exactly. And so he got a second chance of life, and he used it as a second chance to party. And that's how cunning,
how old is he?
Baffling. He's like 58.
He's my age.
So he's still going because he keeps putting money into it. So like a normal guy, man, you're not going to get a new heart by getting these expensive stem cells and going to Panama. You know what I mean?
Well, I am. But, okay.
But what I'm saying is, you got options when you have money, and therefore it's harder to get sober. And even when you are sober, when you get, run into a crazy amount of money, it gets you thinking, this time maybe I could do it right. That's the great obsession, right? This time I have money. I can get the better Coke. I can get the better.
That's
heroin.
not what it is. Every drug addict's dream is to be able to die loaded, so they don't have to raise their hand again and get sober again, because that's a hassle. And that's what that is. And I know, because I had that dream, and it was wrecked when I had my daughter, because it's not exactly, that's not father behavior. So she saved me there.
The reason I think it's evolving is enough of us comedians have seen people die. We've seen people completely wreck their lives with drugs and alcohol. And these are the successful ones, right? And if you're not successful, you're dying without even notice, right? Actually, recently, which is about a year ago, 3 comedians died.
Who died?
Of fentanyl overdose.
Who died?
Fuquan, Rico, and I forgot the third person's name. But basically, they were partying here in Santa Monica. Well, it was a big news story. I'm surprised you didn't hear it.
Did they die together?
They died together. It was the same batch. And one girl, I'm not going to name her name, but one girl survived, who was also a comedian. And everyone blamed her because she lived. Basically, they had to find the person responsible, and they blamed it on her, said that she gave them the Coke. They weren't even trying to do heroin or fentanyl. They were trying to actually just party on a weekend, and they're not even like addicts. They were like weekend warriors, and they were trying to just do some cocaine, and it was poisoned with fentanyl. These days it's poisoned. And so because of this new environment that we live in, where any drug can be laced with fentanyl now, whether it's Percocets, whether it's cocaine. Well, back in the day, I always joke around about this is, back in the day, if I did some bad Coke that was cut with shit, I would just shit my pants.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Nowadays, you literally die. But back then it was just cut with baby laxative. Remember those days? That's right. You had to take a shit immediately, right? When you did a bump. Nowadays, you die. You don't get another opportunity. And so it is scary out there. And because of those situations and seeing other friends of ours die and the great comedy legends die, we're like, maybe there's another way to handle our distress, our trauma. And more comedians, at least the ones that I hang out with, are meditating. They're in 12-step programs. They're in therapy. Back in the day, if you tried to get Richard Pryor to go to therapy, he'd be like, get the out of here, motherfucker. I'm going to smoke me some crack. Right? Sorry, that's a bad. Cut that part out.
No, we don't need
bad.
Bad.
It's a bad representation.
Oh, we'll cut out anything he wants. Yeah.
No, actually keep it in. That was funny. Yeah. And so, nowadays people are, finding recovery. They're finding other ways to cope with their trauma and distress. And it's a stressful business too. You're on the road a lot by yourself. People want to party with you all the time. And when you want to stop,
Right.
so there's always somebody who magically has cocaine. And then you're like, where were you when I wanted to do the cocaine? Now I'm trying to be sober. And now you want, you know what I mean? Always the two, model chicks that you would have never had while you were using. When you try to get sober, you're going to get somebody testing you, right?
All the time.
And so, you got those challenges that other people don't have, right?
I think people just want to, I like comedians. Like, basically, the people who have done this so far are comedians and underground rappers.
Yeah.
Right. I've had a couple doctors and more serious stuff, but I like talking to comedians.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems to me that, you get done with a set and you're the most popular guy in the room. Right. Everybody wants to hang out with you. Yeah. And so they're trying to gain favor. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think that if you're in my mind, if you're the head guy there and they're all clamoring to you, right? It would seem like it would be easy. It's like, no, man, I don't do that anymore. I'm sober.
It's really not that easy.
Give me the example. Go through it with me.
Okay.
Hey, I'm sober. I'm not into it. Go on.
So most of it is, well-intentioned. They just want to party with you because you were the headliner. You were up there. You're funny. And they think you're funny. They would just want a story.
They want to be friends.
They want to be friends. So they want to buy you a shot. Come here. Come on. And then if they're drunk and persistent, they're being aggressive about it. Like, come on, bro, you got to just have one. And I don't want to go into a whole soliloquy of how, but usually I'll joke around and that'll be enough where I'll say, you know what? If I drink, my faceplate breaks out in cocaine. And they laugh, or breaks out in handcuffs, which is both true, by the way.
Right.
Every time I drink, I do cocaine and sometimes end up in jail. Yeah. So long story short, I'll joke it off and usually that's enough. But there's been times, not too many times, but a couple times where they still go for it. They still, hey, come on. And one time I had to take a $50 shot of Patron and just spill it behind me when they were so drunk that they didn't see that I just went like that and spilled it. So I just spilled it rather than keep fighting with this guy. Why I don't. And now most of the time, man, I'll just kind of leave,
Right.
I'll just leave, but yeah. So you find yourself in situations that average or normal people don't really have to deal with.
Tell me about the close friends that you've had or the people that you know well that died of fentanyl. Tell me about them.
Well, the most recent case that I can think of right now that comes to mind is my friend Nick. And when I was up in Seattle doing a show about 6 months ago, we had just talked about his son, who was a heroin addict, and how he had revived his son a couple times already, using, Narcan. And he was just saying how concerned he was and how he was worried that one day he was going to find him dead. And then a month ago, he messaged me and said, I thought you should know my son, Nick, was found dead. And I found him on Saturday or whatever. And it was just so painful. I mean, I didn't know him personally. He actually came to one of my shows when I did one in town. So met him briefly, but just knowing how much pain my friend, who's the father.
How many kids does he have?
He's got 3 kids.
How many boys?
He's got 2 boys. Yeah.
How old was his son when he passed?
I think he was like 20. Yeah, 20. So just getting started, man.
Oh my God.
Just getting started. And I didn't have the words to even.
There are no words. He's never going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you ever get over. See, you're not a dad yet. So let me just shh, 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 shh. You're putting your kid down as a baby for hours. For hours. You don't sleep. Ever. Okay? You've got 20 years into this kid Oh my God. I love my children more every single day. So he loved his kids more than I even love my kids because they're older. He's destroyed. Does he have a wife?
Yeah, he's got a wife, and
Done.
they have each other. But
Done.
Yeah. So yeah.
Finished. The whole family system is finished.
Mm-hmm.
The siblings will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
The parents will never be the same.
Yeah.
If grandparents are alive, they're in the grave.
Yeah.
That put them right in the grave.
Yeah.
That's horrific.
It's horrible. It's just no words, man.
70% of all this stuff on the street now, 70% of it is all laced with fentanyl. How do you feel about, I'm getting beaten up a lot about having these underground rappers here. And some of them walk in with a joint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in this underground rap culture, think of it, they're kids, right? And it's embedded. It's like part of their DNA. Everybody they know does it. Everything revolves around it. So if I'm sitting here and I'm telling some kid, no, you got to be sober, he doesn't have an ear for that.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm the old guy screaming, get off my lawn.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But if they're smoking pot here and I can get them to understand you don't buy anything on the street anymore. You go to the doctor, you get a pharmacy, you go to the dispensary only to get your weed. It's like, I've been getting beaten up for that, but that's like medically assisted treatment.
Yeah.
Because some of these guys are going to grow out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, pot, dying, I don't really think it's a choice.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. My view on that is yes, do whatever works for them. And some people, man, they need something, especially in those first few years, getting off a hard drug like heroin. And so if that works for them, hey, man, I'm not one of those, AA Nazis, as they say, that this is the only way to do it. Again, my dad got sober through the church. He's got 35 years. There's other ways to do it. You know what I mean? And my friend got sober through ayahuasca, doing a little, ayahuasca journey. There's other ways. I'm not God. I'm not, the know-it-all that thinks that they know everything about drugs and alcohol.
Do you know what I hate about that, though?
And sobriety,
Do you know what I hate about that, though? These kids that we just talked about, they can't go to AA. They can't.
Yeah.
Because that message won't be delivered to them. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And you're exactly right.
Yeah.
There's more than one. And
there's now treatment centers and meetings.
Right.
Believe it or not. I just spoke at one. Yes.
Shut up.
Yes. And at first I was taken aback because they didn't tell me the exact circumstances of this rehab center that I went and spoke at. So I basically went to this meetings thinking, because I speak a lot at meetings. And I went to speak at this treatment center and I smelled pot like right when I walked in. And I was like, well, hey, I thought this was a treatment center. They're smoking pot. He goes, oh, they didn't tell you that we allow, these are like hardcore fentanyl addicts and heroin addicts, and we allow weed here. Is that going to be okay? And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? Long as they don't smoke while I'm in the room.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Sure.
Because if this works for these kids, and most of them were kids, by the way, they were like barely 18.
Right.
And then more power to them. You know what I mean? And they said, oh, good. Because some of the guys that we've brought here or asked and told them about our circumstances that we allow pot, they didn't want to come speak. So the fact that you want to speak, they were super grateful.
Well, in all fairness, they didn't tell you till you got there.
Yeah.
In fact, they didn't even tell you.
I think someone just dropped the ball. You know what I mean? I don't think that,
That's not nearly as funny, though.
Yeah. Yeah, cut that part out. We'll keep the Yeah. No, I think, they had enough people maybe reject them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And when they told them about the pot thing, that they kind of did a bait switch.
Right.
Which us addicts do a lot, right?
It did. The truth is overrated.
But the point is, man, if it worked for them, man, and they've apparently saved some lives, my friend, Nick would have gave anything to have his kid just smoke pot. He'd still be here.
Yeah.
And so who am I to say that that's not a viable way to recover?
So what kept you coming back to recovery?
Man, honestly, in the beginning, it was the kindness of the people in the program. This was the time when, I didn't have self-esteem or self-love. I didn't look at myself as a good dude. I didn't think I deserved any kindness, right? And this guy, I used to go to the log cabin every day at 1 p.m. They used to have a great meeting there. I think they still do.
It's a gay meeting.
Okay. And you go there every week?
Every week.
And so, yeah, I used to go there every day. And this guy comes up to me and says, because he heard my share that I didn't have a car. And he goes, do you need a ride to the meeting every day? And, I never really had a guy want to pick me up unless he was trying to pick me up. So I was, still come from the streets, little, shell shocked.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, he goes, no, it's no trouble at all. It's on my way. And so this guy, it was like clockwork. Every day at 12:30, he would be outside of my apartments.
Wow.
And some nights when I was doing shows and also going out, I wouldn't drink because I didn't want to tell my new friend that I had relapse. So in the beginning, I kind of stayed sober for him because he was so kind to me. And you know how they say in the program that it's one alcoholic helping another alcoholic?
Yeah.
I say it's one alcoholic being kind to another alcoholic. Yeah. And that's what kept me coming back is all these people, man. And I could tell story after story of people being kind to me. And now I don't, if a newcomer needs a ride, man, I'm there because I knew what that meant to me, in the beginning.
Love's the foundation for everything,
Sure
man,
is.
Isn't it?
Sure is. Richard.
Especially when we come in so shame-based,
Yeah.
right? And just a waste.
Yeah.
And people just love us. And we're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's just, so obviously you're going to come back for the love.
Yeah, man. Yeah, they love us before we can love ourselves, right?
For sure. For sure. What did I not ask you? What do you want to pitch? What do you want to talk about? What do you think was left unsaid?
I think what I want to say to people out there that are struggling with recovery is keep getting up. It doesn't matter how many times you fall, long as you get up one more time. But the problem with that approach is that you don't know how many chances you have, right? Like my friend's son maybe thought he could come back and he doesn't have that opportunity, right? So I say to people, man, the best time, right, is right now to be sober. If you're still alive, you still have a better chance at this, and get up one more time. And then the final thing I want to say is you can raise your bottom. So the last time I came in, I didn't lose everything. And someone did me a huge favor. They were like, you know what? Why don't you raise your bottom? In other words, you don't have to go back to jail. You don't have to overdose again because I've overdosed. Those, that's part of my story. You don't have to lose everything and be jobless and everything. And that did me a favor. He goes, raise your bottom. He goes, say enough is enough. I know where this story is going. Why don't you make yourself a new story where you succeed, you get sober, and you find your passion, and you become an inspiration to people, and that's exactly what I did. I rewrote my story to not the chronic relapser that I had labeled myself as someone who stays sober, sticks to the deal, recovers, and is able to be an inspiration instead of part of the problem.
You're exactly right. Truer words were never spoken.
Is that a good enough ending for you?
Sure. Is there anything else you want to plug before we're done?
Actually, Richard, now that you mention it, I just released a special on 800 Pound Gorilla YouTube. And it's just released it 2 weeks ago. And I tell more of these stories that I've told on here. It's the first time I was like completely vulnerable in my stand-up comedy. So find out, how I made my parents proud, some more of the details, some more funny stories on my new special, Walk This Way, spelled WOK, because I'm Asian.
Right. You are?
Yeah, which comes as a surprise to many of my friends. So.
I thought you were Hispanic in prison.
Yeah, a Hispanic on weed. So I got some tour dates coming up. I got San Jose Improv on the 27th. I got San Diego Mic Drop on the 20th of this month. I got Portland Mission Theater coming March 16th. And I got a date March 6th over in Phoenix, actually with Tom Arnold, who's also one of us. So if you can't remember all these dates, get on my website, jimmyshindig.com, and you can get all the tour dates there.
I can't believe you remembered all that. I'm like in shock. I didn't even hear it. I'm just thinking, how the hell did he do this?
I'm telling you, man, my memory is still good after all those years of pot. So don't let them tell you that it's going to kill your brain.
I won't. It's next Tuesday. Okay. You'll drop at 9:00 in the morning.
See you next Tuesday.
If you or a loved one is struggling, we have a number that you can call, and we'll help you find the best treatment that is right for you. Our company, One Call Placement, is dedicated to helping you, and we'll find the best treatment that is right for you. So call now at 888-808-6159. Again, that's 888-808-6159.
We're out of time. Please subscribe on YouTube, click the thumbs up, and leave a comment. Please subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify and leave a rating and a review. And share the We're Out of Time podcast with others you know who will get value out of it. See you next Tuesday.